We're live. Sorry about not counting down.
We're live now?
Yeah, we're live. So, but we're going to get some people in the house. Yeah, so we're live. So anything you say can and will be held against you. You know what I mean?
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
All right, let's see. We're going to roll the show out in a couple of minutes. Hello, Astral. Hello, Linda. Hello, Diane. Long time no see. And everybody else coming in. If these shows resonate, please share. I'm going to share to the network real quick, and then we're going to formally roll the show out. All right. See if the sound's all right. Test, test. All right. Yeah, we're good. All right. Hello, everybody. Got 22 people in the house. That sounds like a pretty good number to me. It's filling up pretty quick. I'm going to go ahead and formally roll the show out. And but before I do, I don't normally read bios, and I'm not going to read the whole bio. We'll be here for about 25 minutes. He's this guy. Hey, how's it going? All right. Let's see. All right, 28 people in the house. Thank you for all your continued love and support. So today, we're going to have a conversation, as we always do on Soul Speaks 5D, with a very special brother that I just met or was reconnected with through his divine goddess, and the circles just get closer and closer. But let me give a description of who he is. Hay House Balboa author, spiritual teacher, JHB Hone Edmonds was given something very few people were given on the day he died. November 13, 2008, 5:20, collapsing for 25 minutes. His physical body was without a heartbeat. One of the longest to be dead in the world. A 1 in 5 billion chance of surviving such an event for such a length of time. His spiritual self soared to a great and profound epiphany. He goes on to tell an incredible story, and we're going to get into some of that and whatever else happens. You know how it goes here on Soul Speaks 5D. But I just want to say it's a deep honor to share space. You know, thank you for taking the time to honor us with your presence. I look forward to a nice discussion, and welcome, Hone, to the show.
Thank you, Todd. I just want to, just pass on my love and deepest gratitude for being invited onto the show. I've known you for just a few weeks, and just been enthralled in the wisdom that not just you have brought into the oneness family worldwide, but also to the great contributors that you've had on the show. So it's a great honor to be on the show. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, very welcome. It's an honor to serve like you do. You set a great example, and reading through your story a couple of times, you've got a really broad range, really one end of the spectrum to the other in your life experience and in your spiritual expansion as a result of what you went through. I don't know where you want to start. You do a lot of things and have been around a lot. So I guess the first thing I'd ask you is, what do you see as the state of affairs right now with these energies moving so fast and being so obvious to us, more and more obvious to us, even those that are supposedly not awake? What's it look like out there to you?
I'm quite new to the family. I mean, many of the awakened have been around for a great number of decades. We can go back even as far as the times of the great impressionist artists, and even the period of Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein. That was really the beginning of a grand awakening. Another one is also J.R.R. Tolkien. Also, many people probably have not really computed the fact that his stories, particularly The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, were actually symbolic and featured around the context of the world and what it was becoming of, and what he saw of the future of the world at that particular time. But he wrote those particular stories in the essence of something that was to draw people in a romantic kind of a way.
Yeah.
Following on that, the cancer of the world started to really infiltrate society as it was seen, and the world was really up against the wall, chained. But I'm quite new to this. I've only been conscious in the womb of happiness, and I've been happy for coming on close to 10 years now because of what occurred in my life. However, a lot of the enlightened souls have been around at the preeminence of the era of Woodstock and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and so forth. And that was the beginning of that wave. And the forces of the world have really come up against this awakening. But now I see concurrently in of recent years now is that it's really starting to there's really been starting to build up this momentum of awakened ones coming in upon the earth to in two ways, to bring in their own inner awakening, which I think is the most important. We can see what's happening in the world. However, if we tend to focus on what the world is doing, we forget about cultivating and nurturing and elevating ourselves from that love heart space, and that is starting to build momentum. And I think it's really getting now to that point of the tipping over point of a great ascension of like-minded souls and light beings, and even those who don't even consider themselves anything other than just being realists of truth. And I think it's really becoming more noticed now than ever before. And I can only see some positive steps that are going to bring this wave of consciousness more into this bigger state of what we want for the world in total, for ourselves.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's a lot of information, and it's straight from the heart. And I think that your broad life experience surely played a big part in that. You spend time. You're from Maori tribe, right? Did I pronounce that right?
Maori, very good.
Maori.
Very good.
I'm getting there. So, I'm not going to try to say the other one, but you still go back there because you live in Turkey now, and you still go back there and you spend time out there where there's no cell phones, no nothing, in the beautiful wilderness. And you've also been around the world a little bit and done some things. My personal curiosity is, if I look at my own life and the life of others that I know, their personal divine episodes and experiences that they, realize on their own what they look like. I know what mine look like. I'd like to know what yours looks like. With that range of contrast. How would you describe your personal divine experience? Because we all know that the soul highway is an individual journey when you get right down to it.
That's a good question that I could probably talk a lot for quite a long time, but I'll try and condense it down as much as I can. I suppose what the preemptive move that brought me to doing something that I guess is considered to being out of the normal, but then what is normal, was the fact that after coming out of the coma, I saw the world with a lot more clarity, a lot more truthfulness, and I wasn't really drawn to the nature of the world as it was, particularly when I was looking outside of my bed in hospital and just seeing how crazy the world was down below, and also within the hospital itself. And I was always looking at nature. I was always looking out in the trees in the hills adjacent to the hospital, just wishing that I could hear the birds, and just to be able to feel the air and the sun. And when you're locked away in a hospital for that period of time, I was always yearning to be in nature. For me, it was quite easy to go out into the wilderness and to be able to do stretches of time in the wilderness alone, because I tended to I threw my cell phone away. I got rid of it. Mm-hmm. I haven't had a cell phone or any device in my person for 10 years. I found it very intruding, and I wanted really to be in control of my own space. But I do find that for others who do come out into the wilderness, I find it quite invigorating, and that they find it also empowering for themselves to be able to disconnect and reconnect with something that's more purposeful, or something that's more truthful, because there is no falsity, there's no fakeness, there's no beliefs or any ideologies that pertain to anything on the earth, be it political, be it religious, be it homegrown beliefs and those types of things. And so what nature tends to do is educates us to being able to connect to the animals, the creatures, the water especially, and also the plants and the trees.
Yeah. That's a really good point, and I don't understand it to the level you do, because I've never been able to get that way into the wilderness. But I know for 2 years, after I came off the streets, I lived next door to a big cemetery that had everything, including water, a bayou, and animals and everything else. And that was where I went every day or every night, and that's where I was able to get connected very quickly and much deeper than. And so a couple of times in the last years, as I've traveled the country, I have been in the wilderness. And going back to my earlier question, I found that the divine episodes and divine experiences I had in that wilderness, like on the mountain in Arkansas, at a swimming hole in the middle of the night on a full moon with no clouds in the sky, and the cooperation, which was not a coincidence, of nature and the rituals and the connections I was making had a physical, were physically visible to the eye. So do you find, as deep as you've gone down there, I mean, is it, I guess that's where the indigenous gain their foundation, I guess, is because they're always in that space, right?
That's so true. I mean, civilization, I tend to call civilization of the ancient people. I tend to call this age now as decivilization, because people are not as civilized as what they are and should be and could be. So our ancient people taught us a lot, and I mean, so to be able to go back into the civilized world of Gaia, or Papatūānuku, we refer to it in Māori back in Aotearoa, which is in New Zealand. that our people have been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. And quite contrastingly is the fact that many of our tribal relations, both the Mayan people, the Incas, the Aztecs, the people here in Europe, the older cultures, in Asian culture also, and even in Africa, Egypt, and the like here in the Middle East, that they all knew about love. They all knew about our relationship and our kinship with the stars, and they revered and learned a great deal from the universal oneness of collective consciousness, which belies the premise that the world of the electronic world now can help to educate, but it also has an ability to distract us from what is true and what is unreal. And so I think that's quite important for us as emissaries, or as light beings, or as enlightened folk, or people that are on the journey to their own enlightenment, is to being able to filter that which does not ring true or does not align to them. So the aspect of being in nature enables us to be able to not live without the connection of any electronic means, to being able to connect without the noise of human device or human buildings and cars, and seeing those kinds of things within our visual context. But also to being able to, number one, is to practice and meditate, but also to learn how to be involved in just doing nothing. I think humanity has forgotten the art of doing nothing and simply being in connection of service and of receivership to that which comes from the higher realms, from the higher dimensions and densities, and hearing the languages of nature. I mean, we get that through our creatures, we get it through our birds, through the wind, through water, and we also get it through the songs from being in nature.
Yeah.
And as long as we understand that the idea of safety and security are an illusion, I think it's something that is I think if we can achieve that realization, and from coming from cities, suburbs, and towns, to go into nature is being able to draw them out of their safety zone, out of their secure zone, and to being able to live an equally comfortable existence for a period of time, however long it may be. They find after a while there can be quite a peaceful and extremely uplifting environment to be immersed in.
Yeah, for an extended period of time as well. You know, it sounds colossal because you're reducing the multiplicity of the civilized 3D and going into the other end of the spectrum. And as things stand right now, you'd be going in there with more and more alignment with your multiple dimensionality aspects, because of where we're at right now. I can't even imagine. You know, I would think clarity, the pinpoint clarity of the third eye, or whatever you want to call it, the alignment, whatever, would be incredible to do that in this, 2018 right now. I think that would
There's
be
no
amazing.
distractions. In a nutshell, there's no distractions. So it allows us to be able to adventure inwards and to see more of our true self in a way that we can be accepting of ourselves, to be able to releasing the beliefs of what we've been taught in our lives, and to know that everything is all well. And once we
Yeah.
get to this peaceful state of stillness, we can then come back into the world, the decivilized world, and remember that we have this like a bubble around us that
Yeah.
keeps us separate without us becoming infected by that which does not serve us to our highest level.
Amazing. Now, did you spend? I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I know it starts with an A, but were you born there? And what's the name?
New Zealand is the name of the country that I think the world knows it as. That was a name given to the country after British colonisation. Our indigenous native tribes have always referred to the country as Aotearoa, which means the land of the long white cloud.
The land of the long white cloud? Is that right?
The land of the long white cloud. Okay. So I would say that I would say 90% of the people from Aotearoa refer to it as Aotearoa and not as New Zealand.
Now, is Aotearoa the whole country? The name prior to it, or however you want to put it? And are the Maori to the Aboriginals? I know that that's a pretty good distance, New Zealand to Australia. But like you were saying, their connection to the Mayans and the Aztecs, do they go back that far too? Because those are old primitive civilizations, possibly some of the oldest, right? I mean, at least in the last 2,000 or 3,000 years. How far back does the Maori tribe go?
The Maori, the tribes of the first waka, or the first canoes, because we were predominantly seafaring. We traveled at night by the stars, originating from Micronesia to the east, and then moving eastwards across the Pacific Ocean, and following the stars and taking my ancestors through to Hawaii, and then over towards the Americas, and then down into Central America, South America, to Easter Islands, which is referred to as Rapa Nui, and then back towards the Cook Islands, or Rarotonga, and then to Tonga, and then venturing southwards, whereupon they came across Aotearoa. So that was around about 1,700 years ago. These migrations occurred over many hundreds of years, and settling process occurred. But comparing to our Aboriginal cousins, I think they're one of the longest known cultures in the world, which I think date back to 80,000 years.
Wow! Even that journey of your people, it's so intricate. Is there a pretty strong oral history in the tribe?
That's such a good question, and the reason I say that is because we didn't have a written language. Our language was always passed on orally. So it was what we refer to as kōrero, kita kōrero. So the grandparents would pass it on to their children, their children would pass it on to their children. I think in saying that, though, it was specific elders within tribes or within hapu who had the wisdom would be responsible of imparting that wisdom and sharing it down through the tribes. In a sense that we refer to them as tohunga, shaman, maybe other people might refer to them as, but they were specialists in their various fields. And so ancient anthropology, also with laws, even areas of plantings and rituals, things like that. There were predominant tohunga who were responsible for their own specialized roles within tribes. But it was all done by oral. There was no written language back then. Over the last 100 years, it's now become a written language.
So are there still, well, I guess they were moved out like the rest of the indigenous around the world. They moved out and put into civilization or whatever. Or do they have like reservations there? Do they have land there? That like the
yeah, I think just to set it straight, we didn't move out. A lot of our people were annihilated, and once British colonization occurred, so many of our ancestors were many of our villages were wiped out, and there were horrible stories. When I was back in my tribal region, I had the honor to listen to one of our kuia, we call them, which is a wise woman. She spoke. She was in her 90s, and she was. I remember her talking, and it brought a lot of the people in that particular hui in that meeting almost to tears, because she was recalling the time when she was a little girl and in their village seeing these British soldiers arriving on horseback and just totally killing everyone in that village.
So it must have lasted at least as long. It sounds like at least as long as like the Native Americans in the States, which was probably to like the 1890, I think, was when the Ghost Dance Massacre happened. But it sounds like maybe it's not even been that long for your tribe. But
very similar. It was in the late 1700s. I think in the US it was even earlier than that. The early initial impingements that occurred to
the early ones,
yeah.
Now how much of your tribal culture is a part of you? I mean, were you deeply indoctrinated into it? I mean, I know you've expanded into, as we all have, into the different global vibrations and frequencies and all that. But it seems like it's a very deep and pure culture.
Very much so. I would say that sadly, when British colonization occurred, the Māori language was no longer permitted to be spoken. You were punished if you were caught speaking the language, and so it caused a discolation between the ability for our people to being able to pass on the language, because out of I guess imperialism, the object of that rule was to enhance the English culture, the British way of life, and thus stamping out anything that had anything to do with our culture or kaupapa.
Yeah,
and
essentially
so
ethnic cleansing. Essentially, that's what
it is.
was,
I mean,
right?
it's right across the world, and
it is
for very few countries.
Yeah,
and so we're quite a strong. We don't sit back and take it. And over the last 25 years, especially, we've had a voice in politics, and that's been in a really momentous era for Māoridom to have more and more politicians coming into the parliament. And now we see schools that are totally immersed in the culture and the language of revitalizing the language, our language, back into the country. And the great thing about it is the language is now starting to flourish and becoming accepted, not just accepted within Māoridom, but also within all all the Kiwis, everyone from Aotearoa have had a positive viewpoint of the way that it needs to be nurtured and cultivated. And one of the things that I have seen that's been quite uplifting is that there's many other cultures from around the world are coming to our land, and particularly in one of our Māori universities to learn about our culture, and then taking some of our history back to empowering their indigenous
so they're almost like reverse engineering, right? They're going back into their roots, right, and bringing that wisdom forward. Yeah,
I think very important.
I don't read too much newspaper or anything anymore, all that stuff, news. But you never heard a lot of New Zealand. I never heard about the tribe until when I woke up, as I was telling you when I met you. But it would seem to me that country as a whole would be a little progressive. I don't know why I would think that. Is it a progressive country? I mean, are they? It sounds like if they're open to bringing in the cultural roots and knowledge and wisdom. That has to be a reflection of the society over there.
I think so, and we're quite a diverse country in terms of cultural understanding and acceptance of other cultures. I think that's quite important, is being able to embrace and to allow those who come with the idea that when in Rome, you live as the Romans do. Yeah. And it doesn't seem to be the case in other countries. I mean, it's when in those countries you live according to what the governments say of you. So,
well, unless you're an outlaw. I'm just kidding.
So I guess that in a way it's being able to shine a beacon for other nations, particularly for things that are what we call taha Māori. And if we can not only empower our own people, but being able to empower other cultures, both European and indigenous cultures from our ancient lands, our ancient cousins. We are all one people, and just one of the examples of that is the fact that we refer to our moon here as Marama, back in Aotearoa, and the native Aboriginal whānau culture in Australia, they refer to it as Maramara, and we refer to our sun as Ra. In Egypt, they refer to the sun as Ra. So the question lies, how did these two cultures from both ends of the earth know that the name of the sun was referred to as Ra when there was no Google, there was no encyclopedias? How did they know that Ra was referred to as Ra by the same name? And we can only point upwards. And this is the power of that great, this is the power of the Great Pyramid. The wisdom is always above.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing that's why I was so intrigued by the oral history is because when you talk about their journey, and a lot of these journeys, they all started in the same place, which is interesting, or at least a lot of them did. But that's very interesting, and that answered the question I was going to ask you. Actually, I wanted to ask you a little bit more, and you just went right into it a little bit beyond. Incredible. Let me ask you this. Let's change it up a little bit. What is your passion? Where are you throwing your soul fire into after all this time? I'd love to have like kind of a regular show, like once a week or so, because you've got a lot to talk about, you've got a lot to say, and I just think it's a good idea. So I'm just throwing that out there on the public airways. Put a little pressure on you, but so where are you putting your energy? What do you like to do?
What is the passion? I think it's multi-scope in terms of being able to answer that question. However, I think the it changes quite significantly over a period of time. I think once coming out of the coma, my passion was adjusting back into the earth again. Everything felt very, very dysfunctional, both out there in the world, but also within my own healing, etc. So my passion was just enjoying the fact that I was breathing, and being able to walk was another one. Being able to not take things to heart, because I'd lost 8 years of my short-term memory. And that was quite disheartening in the fact that I had no idea that I owned a house. I had no idea that I owned a business. Anyone that I had met within those 8 years who came to visit me, I had no idea who they were. So, but my long-term memory was quite enhanced, so much so that I could remember what things were like as a child.
Okay.
Like as yesterday.
Yeah. So you lost a period of 8 years. We didn't go into the specifics of what happened. I don't think we really need to. But I can see the depth of your experience must have been huge. Obviously, you physically passed for an extended period of time, and but you're saying you went 8 years, or you have 8 years that are blocked out?
The only time that brings pieces of a jigsaw puzzle of that period back is when I might see a picture, or I might go to a place that I had been to, and then it comes back. It's like that piece of that missing jigsaw pops itself back into the right place again. But there are still many other gaps. But I've sort of got to that point now that I don't worry about that anymore. If another piece of the jigsaw slots itself into the great puzzle, then that's wonderful. But now it's really, at the moment, it's just being able to help others who are coming into the fold, and to being able to connect with what I would refer to as the gatherers. You're obviously one of the gatherers, is where you're being able to draw in those that are going through an awakening process within their own lives, and doing it on onto a multiple scale, but also the ones that are also bringing in maybe just a handful of new ones into the fold, who are starting to see who they are for themselves also. And the main thing really is to being able to help those understand what our meaning in this new existence pertains. What does it involve? And I think we may get ourselves a little bit confused that it involves too many things, but if we can simplify it down to just the short, simple purposes, really is for ourselves to live in blissfulness, to understand that everything that we do within enhancing that blissfulness comes from a place of love. Now, love is one of the great mysteries of life, and I don't think that even myself, even though I've been to the most ephemeral, loving dimension beyond the earth and come back to express the love that was so profound there, I think that even myself am still a student. I'm still learning about the power of this mystical essence that is not.
That's right. That's right. We don't know nothing, man. I don't know nothing.
So really, if we can really touch other souls and being able to bring more and more into their knowing, into their truth of helping them to their ascension, then that's all we really need to do at this point.
Yeah, what's cool too.
The other one really is just being able to to help them with areas of they may be unsure, or they may be feeling feelings of angst or fear about certain things, afraid of letting go certain things, and we're there just to say it's okay.
Yeah,
it's really okay.
Man, what's cool too is you're basically paralleling or continuing what your your origin, Maori, is doing as a whole, as a collective. Let me ask you this. I bet, having those 8 years kind of wiped or whatever, or put away, your other abilities probably increased. It made room for it. So I have kind of a double question, just out of curiosity. What is the relationship between the Maori and the galactic star families, and on their collective level, and what is that relationship on a personal level with you?
I think one thing that must be shared is the fact that what Maori themselves knew of that beyond the earth is also in concert with other indigenous cultures around the world also, and namely the fact that we knew that our guidance came from above.
Yeah.
We knew also that love was the force which preempted harmony, and which also enforced oneness within the nucleus of the family unit, and also within the village, and also within the nation of the land. And that was always, whenever decisions were made and are made still, we always give our prayer and thanks to, number one, our universal force. We call it Il Matua. Some may refer to it as God. Some may call it Allah. Whatever that name is, it doesn't have as much emphasis as it does what the force is.
Yes.
And so I think being able to acknowledge always that which bestirs our existence, our survival, and our connection to being able to become more cultivated, more nurtured, and to hold that as our key of our experience on the earth. And then being able to acknowledging also those who have passed on before us, or who we refer to as our tupuna. Because if we can acknowledge the fact that when we leave the earth, we become cleansed and pure again. We go home to what we call Hawaii Nui, Hawaii Roa, Hawaii Pāmamau, call it heaven, call it Jannats, call it whatever you like, Nirvana, Shangri-La, whatever. It doesn't really matter about the names. But in terms of our knowing, our ancient people of knowing of the stars, that was also evidence. There was lots of evidence, and still is evidence, of the fact that we knew all the different dimensions within Māoridom of those stars also, not just with the knowledge of the earth, but also through heaven, through the Pleiades, through Sirius, through Arcturus, through Orion, through Andromeda, through Epsilon, Avalon, Lyra Vega, Lyra, and so on. The Māori knew all those dimensions. And the same again, I have no doubt in my mind that our Peruvian cousins, our Native American cousins, our Egyptian cousins, Aboriginal cousins, and even our European cousins knew all about those dimensions.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's
where we came from.
It's an amazing. Wow. I mean, I can't remember I guess it would have been the Sumerians, maybe, or no, there's another tribe. There's another tribe over there. I think it starts with a D, and they have a relationship with, I think, Pleiadian, the Dogai tribe. I think it's something like that. And you know,
you're so right.
But I love what you were talking about with you know, the path, just like you talked about the path of your people going from where they started over to your homeland. But those stars systems that you mentioned, those are our real roots. In fact, we have roots beyond those roots. You know what I mean? And that's amazing, because there are souls that have traveled through those star families, those star systems, and many lives, many lives. And this is what I find exciting is we're getting activated every day in our memories, not just our skills and abilities. Looks like you're setting up there, so I'm gonna take this time to slash through this poem. So my brother here sent me a nice note, and it's an honor to do this, and I love to read people's stuff. Thank you. He says, one of my poems, if you would like to read before the shows, you have a great rhythm when you read / rap them, brother. And I'm a poet. I'm a poet, and I really appreciate great poetry, and I appreciate unique and original poetry, because poetry is a rhythm, it's a phrasing, and you know, the real artists in poetry, they change up the tempo in a very beautiful, poetic way. And that's what I see here. The name of this, I believe, is Be Assured. Is that right? Be Assured.
Be Assured.
Okay. Silhouettes of beings, shapes of figures, crowded in a noise, yet no one knows each other, except as a glance, a memory lost in a millisecond, fleeting, non-meeting, heart speeding, strangers streeting, gnosis. In human form, souls seen as people, only the conscious truly see, yet their secrets are locked deep in their thoughts, masked among one another. Lonely, many still, cavalier in their courage, an aching, bleeding heart no one can ever see, heavy with mask over mask. Smiles that give way to the struggle, vulnerability gives way to defeat. Here now gives way to tomorrow. How did it all go sideways? When will they wake from their sleep? The simulated world they give another name, like life, real or happy, be it brief, it's all the same. Come ye, O the invisible voice instructs, the voice of someone else they do not know, yet they obey, all the same, invincible. Wake up to a square, in a square, eat at a square, read at a square, drive the square, park in the square, walk to the square, sit at a square. Home to a square, eat at a square, talk to a square, watch the square, read the square. In a square, sleep. In a square, die, same square. No adventures there, no shapes called nature here. Just a mass of sleepy fare, dreaming of everything, tomorrow's depths they despair. There's shadows of fear strangling air, pain dies, a fiery flare. Life could be easy if only they could care. Love is so near. Right deep in here, but the simulation is always there, the glare, the stare, beware. The tear, graying hair here and there, for who is the care? To the voice it's everywhere, in there, on it goes, the simulation called life, hijacker right there, its name, ego. You are not there, for stay in your heart, the rising of the feminine and masculine, promising bliss, locate the ether of your love, the ascended master asks of you. There is nothing higher than the power of love. You were born to discover love to the ears, the songs and the prayer, the mountains will move. The sorrows will fade, ascension has begun. Just surrender and remember your calling has come. Yeah, it's kind of cool, man. I like that. Thank you for letting me read it.
Oh, you read it so beautifully, Todd.
So we're going to have to do this again, you know, and a lot more time. Like I need to a lot more time. But with your the hour difference, we can do that. But I'm kind of on the move today.
Enjoy
That's
it.
what happens. That's what happens when you, right. That's what happens when you're a gypsy. That's all you can do.
Real gypsy.
take it in stride. Oh, we're leaving today? All right, let's go.
Thank you so much, Todd.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. It really has. It really has. I look forward to future collaborations, and it's great to reconnect with you. With the faint memory I have, it's these new neural pathways are getting blazed every day with these energies coming down. But thank you very much. The best to your goddess and all your loved ones. Thank everybody for joining us. I got to go see the manager before they kick me out. And we'll have another show in an hour. And then after that, I don't know what's going to happen. All right, we'll see you later.
Keep it empty, keep it pure.
I'll reach out soon. Thank you very much.
Take care.